The arrival of the alien invaders brought constant accuracy. Their spacecraft are elegant and glistening with cutting-edge technology, hovered over the largest cities on Earth. Their arrival, that appears more official declaration of superiority rather than combat for survival using their superior weapons. With advanced armor, they produced rapidly Earth's early defense systems. Military units equipped with antiquated technology was helpless in the face of invader firepower, swiftly defeats the aliens, evaluated Earth's defenses and gestured contemptuously at ridiculed humanity's techniques of warfare, rejecting them as rudimentary and ineffective on the ground. The administration of Earth hurried to respond. International coalitions were established in an emergency. Countermeasures and triggered protocols were created. But even as people mobilized, an indisputable feeling powerlessness with each unsuccessful try to retaliate against the invaders. As their self-assurance increased, their derision intensified. Earth's conventional warfare is more vociferous. Tactics, fighter airplanes, tanks, and missile systems appeared to be woefully out of date compared to the alien technology that could render them incapable of fighting. With a button press, it seemed as though there was nothing that could prevent the inevitable, overcome the invaders. But undervalued was humanity's capacity to adjust to the first shock of the invasion, was quickly succeeded by a silent yet effective opposition that is unable to equal the superior technology of the aliens. Directly facing the armies of Earth, switch to less conventional techniques, faced with obstacles that appear insurmountable. Outgunning was no longer the main goal. The invaders, yet surpassing their intelligence, humans made up the firepower they lacked. Because of their ingenuity and deep familiarity with their own terrain, the extraterrestrials, who had rejected Earth's forces as merely an annoyance, rapidly became aware that the people were less defenseless than they initially were thought, that while the invaders persisted in attack with tremendous force, the people started utilizing their surroundings to their advantage not too long ago. Soldiers who were inspired by nature started hidden in plain sight while using mud to conceal vegetation and the natural world that the aliens' heat-detecting scanners' movement and signatures were useless. Against this tactic's subtlety, mud and grime, which appear so straightforward, became the invaders' greatest weapon. Advanced technology that made it possible for them to attack at long range was ineffective against the unpredictability. Strategies of the people they anticipated a traditional military reaction that might be readily calculated and eliminated. Nevertheless, they were instead faced with something even more elusive than Earth combatants, concealed deep within their unexpected environmental impact, remaining ahead of the game at all times. As the intruders' annoyance increased, their initial arrogance started to wane and was replaced by a nagging discomfort. With all of its cutting-edge weapons, the aliens were unable to adjust as fast as the people. They depended too much on their technological advantage and undervalued the strength of human inventiveness every time they believed they had. People surrounded the mud-covered Earth forces were able to slip thanks to camouflage away, reorganize, and launch another attack gradually. When things started to change, it was about resistance now, not survival. And every day that goes by, the humanity will to battle became more powerful. As the battle continued and the aliens discovered themselves up against a much more powerful adversary than they had thought, what started as a swift and violent invasion that had become a protracted war of attrition. The extraterrestrials, icy and using a methodical approach, they discovered battling to defeat the human. They made fun of their tenacity and inventiveness, our first strategies. But as time went by, the invaders realized that their technological edge wasn't sufficient to ensure victory. The people had discovered how to combat the land itself, merging with their surroundings in ways that the aliens have never taken into account. The original miscalculation of Earth's opposition soon gave way to the invaders' new reality, While their cutting-edge weaponry and sophisticated equipment had quickly rendered Earth's military units at the beginning of the human morale, the reaction was not at all incapable of facing the invaders head-on with. Technology, humanity, looked to more unconventional but extremely efficient strategies that reject the notion of Earth troops, embraced direct combat, using years of experience, guerrilla warfare instincts for survival, developed by nature and terrain, which was crucial to their success. Environment itself, which in spite of the technological advantages of the invaders, were something beyond their power, or forecast a strategy that soon turned into a Earth's defense, was known for its employment of camouflage smeared with dirt, while the advanced scanners were used by aliens as well as heat detection tools to monitor and eliminate the risks posed by human usage of the land, surrounding them to disappear and fit in. Mud, soil, and organic vegetation turned into essential instruments for avoiding detection, rendering people almost invisible to the sophisticated extraterrestrial technology that unanticipated environmental use enabled. Soldiers to quickly adjust, striking from concealed locations, and disappearing before the extraterrestrials could reply to the invaders, who first mocked Earth's rudimentary tactics, were compelled to reconsider their approach. Their advanced technology, designed to identify heat and motion, was useless in contrast to the delicate earth tone. When humans utilized camouflage, it wasn't that. The technology of the aliens was inadequate. Instead, they relied on it too much. Their dependence on cutting-edge systems, they are susceptible to human ability. For adaptability, the people with their profound knowledge of the Earth were able to take advantage of the alien shortcomings, strategies that take use of nature. What their superior weapons lacked, they compensated with sly inventiveness, and the mud's element of surprise. At first, covered camouflage was considered as a last resort, became a symbol demonstrating the inventiveness of humanity via warriors rapidly become proficient at blending into their environment, with familiarity with the local terrain to foresee strange motions. They didn't hold off until the invaders to approach them, rather than moved at the ideal moment, stunning where the aliens were surprised by capacity to pass through without being noticed. Cities, forests, and even open fields became their most valuable resource, retaining the uneasy invaders who can't plan with any assurance on the psychological impact on aliens were important, because technologies intended to overwhelm adversaries of which they never before had any experiences were taking place in the atmosphere behind closed doors, using Earth's forces to guess that each interaction were turned into using Earth's forces to guess, falling between their fingers over time. And once more, the frustration grew inside the foreign ranks, and the formerly self-assured, the Devilongs, the Vats, the invaders started to lose ground. Despite being outclassed in firepower, was starting to become a larger, unpredictable, and elusive force compared to they could deal with the aliens. Advantage in technology after the most powerful weapon was now demonstrating their dependence on machinery is a liability, and scanning devices exposed them to the simplest yet most powerful components of surprise and deception in combat and endurance. People were discovering how to transform the surroundings into their most component that blends in perfectly with the terrain. Even though the aliens were strong, they could not take into consideration the flexibility and resolve of Earth's protectors. The conflict's tide was gradually but undoubtedly making the aliens, who had made fun of the archaic practices of humanity, were now being compelled to reevaluate the basic essence of conflict. The longer the conflict lasted, the more it drained the humanity of things to come. The aliens became more aware of the technology was insufficient on its own to win the wars. Initial indications of change were subtle. It began with minor triumphs. Instances in which Earth warriors were concealed in the foliage and mud were able to ambush initially the alien patrols. Projected these assaults as anomalies. anything they could readily refute, improved scanners, or greater firepower. But as the strikes maintained their self-assurance, started to break, they soon discovered that these were not isolated occurrences. Not only were the people hiding, but they had mastered movement for hunting, how to disappear in the landscape, and how to attack with lethal accuracy when the technical timing was just right. Benefit that had previously made the aliens feeling invincible was starting to undermine their supposed responsiveness for non-verbal cues. The meter, as opposed to the weak well, amid heightened efforts to locate the people using more advanced technology and more vigilant patrols. But whenever they modified the human, adapted more quickly, it became evident that the armies of Earth were no longer merely acidic. Despite their survival, they were turning into an absolute necessity. The mud-covered force was unpredictable. Camouflage, which at first appeared as though a last-ditch effort to survive was theirs, currently the emblem of this novel type of battle that the invaders were unable to trust their drones and scanners to find the people, and their efforts to clean them out only appeared to raise the annoyance of their respective forces day after day. The mental toll on the aliens developed a feeling of superiority. They had previously outlined its strategy for Earth's invasion was eroding its strength. The underdogs were no longer the powers that aliens had arrived at the location of the hunters. Conquer, with the expectation of facing an adversary that would give way beneath the pressure of their scientific prowess. But they were slowly but gently discovering that there was no secret to beating people who had everything to gain and nothing to lose. Battle for the extraterrestrial technology that had constructed with domination in mind was ineffective in this novel form of combat. This dynamic change wasn't only it was a strategy issue. Once, the invaders were psychologically assured of their capacity to eradicate humanity, was now ranked second. Speculating about the people's every action beneath the dirt layers were no longer only invisible in a physical sense, felt they were elusive from a psychological standpoint. Additionally, the ongoing uncertainty of where the next blow would originate started to wear down the alien troops that, in spite of their advanced technology, was unfamiliar with this type of conflict that they perceived as, in actuality, archaic methods were pushing them to the limit each time. Ambush, each unsuccessful attempt to corner, the people's spirits were somewhat depleted by. However, the aliens were no longer merely the unfrustrated. They were shocked by the conflict and frustrated, which they believed to be a swift and resounding victory had become a protracted, uncertain conflict. They were up against a foe they couldn't effortlessly vanquish, a foe who employed its environment that works against them in ways that hadn't given their advanced weapons, that had previously made them feel invincible, didn't seem to matter anymore. People were battling the earth with Ewok. They were covered in muck, filth, and patience, gaining something that the aliens hadn't predicted, because that technology, in any case, being strong is pointless when confronted with an adversary who is prepared to engage in combat with each and every instrument available to them, including the terrain they are walking over. As the days lasted for weeks, the psychological influence on the extraterrestrial forces grew, had arrived on Earth with the intention of conquering and depart, but they were in a drawn-out process of combating an inability to protect themselves and others. They had discovered weakness and intimidated them. In their instance of absolute responsibility, they had defaulted to war within the concept is robust and resourceful. Once a guaranteed victory now appeared far away, and unsure about every action they took appeared to lead them into a second ambush. Failure of the people under their care. Camouflage had changed from being an experienced crew of quick-witted and deadly members of the Corps to being something even the pirates weren't sure about, coming from a vessel that did nothing but defy the laws of nature. Having the advantage in this conflict, of the invader technology attrition couldn't match the speed of people adaptability, as well as people were learning how to change the terrain of the planet into their most potent weapon. The once confident aliens were starting to inquire as to whether they had undervalued the capacity of humanity to fight back. The battle had come to the people were no longer the tipping point, only maintaining their position. What had begun was being pushed back, as a struggle for existence had changed into a well-thought-out strategic attack. The invaders were once assured of the discovery of technological superiority themselves, defensively advanced weaponry and systems that had destroyed Earth's first efforts at resistance, was no match for the humans' unwavering inventiveness in these guerrilla strategies based on simplicity. Camouflage and dirt had turned into a force, too strong to disregard the extraterrestrial forces. Despite being strong, they were unable to adjust. As soon as the people had their technology intended for extensive clashes and overpowering power, neglected to take into consideration the patience and perseverance of human combatants who were getting used to living with less. The aliens reacted more violently. Techniques using sophisticated scanners, using unmanned aerial vehicles to try to find the humans concealing themselves in the nature concealment, but these attempts were ineffective. The people, whose sole benefit was their familiarity with the terrain and their capacity to adjust, had significantly increased. More elusive than the invaders had thought, whenever the aliens believed they had, the humans would lose the upper hand, away, reassemble, and begin another terrible, unexpected assault. This unexpected resiliency had a significant influence on the alien invaders, who had come anticipating an immediate victory. Were now struggling to accept the fact that they were unable to foresee their opponent's moves. Where they had previously made fun of us, they were now using rudimentary defense strategies. Compelled to reconsider their entire strategy, their former technological advantage trusted was now turning out to be a disadvantage. The more they attempted to oppose the use of mud by humans and concealment, the more they understood they were up against an adversary who was unwilling to follow the guidelines they had established. The foreigners accustomed to ruling through superior firepower was unable to understand how. Straightforward approach has become so successful that it's become a source of client requests and the subject of dozens of books and presentations on the topic. The invaders were expanding beyond what had previously been an overseen global campaign and was actually beating the invaders at their own game, leaving them to deal with disasters in each other's homes. Their invaders were expanding beyond what had previously been a constrained-based conflict. Once, assured extraterrestrial leaders were discovered, oneself doubting their strategies, their presumptions and technologies concerning humanity, the capacity of adjust to and prosper in a setting that, unable to control, the invaders became their maximum power. The longer the fight lasted, the more the aliens understood that triumph would not come naturally to their initial conviction about swiftly winning was deteriorating, and with it, the human morale inspired by their struggle for survival had demonstrated that mere willpower and the capacity to think creatively may overcome even the most sophisticated technologies. It became evident that the aliens were losing ground. Technology no longer played a crucial role. In the past, humans were the ones who had been dismissed as feeble and were demonstrating that their lack of preparation, their capacity to adapt to the environment in order to adjust to the surroundings and to attack precision was much more potent weapon compared to any extraterrestrial technology. The realization started to set in. One of the invaders who had to admit that the conflict they had, believed to be a swift conquest, was rather a struggle for their individual survival. Unsuccessful attempt to squash the personal opposition merely strengthened the determination of Earth's powers. They found their own power, and they were unwilling to concede. The final a stage of the war was unavoidable. The aliens are now completely conscious that they couldn't prevail with only firepower alone, made an effort to adjust once more, but it was already too late. Mankind had won the battle against the aliens. Leaving Earth was more than just a retreat, it was an acknowledgement of their strategy had not succeeded, so their comprehension of combat had been too limited, and that the environment itself they had misjudged and turned the invaders' key to humanity's victory had misjudged humanity's capacity to adjust, and eventually that had been Earth's powers, however, brought them down. Excelled in terms of technology, had demonstrated that having the capacity to outlast and outthink an adversary is frequently stronger than the most sophisticated weaponry used by the invaders. Devastated and humiliated, they departed the earth, not with triumph, but with understanding, because the very thing that vested them with species that they previously thought were unstoppable, clarity of purpose, and true clarity of purpose, the conflict with the aliens was rudimentary, believed to be an unwinnable battle that remains a permanent mark on the planet Earth and its people. The unexpected triumph attained using straightforward but efficient strategies had demonstrated to humanity the strength of resiliency, flexibility, and inventiveness of the mud-covered camouflage that initially appeared to be a desperate action turned into a representation of a testament of human ingenuity that even Earth's forces versus overwhelming odds had succeeded in outwitting their invaders. The tactics used during the conflict changed how humanity viewed combat, and the knowledge acquired would never be forgotten in the wake of Earth's military doctrine. Throughout the conflict experienced a substantial upheaval. Countries no longer underwent metamorphosis, depend only on advanced weapons or enormous firepower, but instead they accepted the fundamentals of unconventional warfare, guerrilla warfare and ground-based tactics displayed by the alien invasion, that although technology is powerful, it might be ineffectively rendered by a determined adversary prepared to adjust and continue the battle. Earth military leaders once used these terminology. Committed to creating ever more advanced weaponry, now gave more importance to knowing the surroundings by using the landscape and becoming proficient in the art of exploit. These teachings were unexpectedly born out of need turned, became a major factor in Earth's future tactics for the aliens' defense. However, we were left to think about it. Their own strategy for conquering bring their technologies to Earth, and their conceit in thinking they are superior. Firepower would ensure a simple triumph, but mankind had taught technology alone to teach kids a great lesson. The extraterrestrial forces had insufficient, neglected to take flexibility into consideration. Of their rivals, they had undervalued people's humanity, and they had depended too much on themselves. Supremacy in technology and their retreat from Earth wasn't merely an acceptance of defeat. It was an acknowledgement of their own inability to develop the ability to think beyond their technology and to comprehend the characteristics of their adversary. The knowledge they acquired on Earth would influence their upcoming activities, but had come at a high price for humanity. The invasion left a legacy of solidarity and takes satisfaction in the worldwide reaction to the alien. The danger from aliens had brought nations jointly, as well as the common experience of triumph, enhanced the ties between nations that Earth had demonstrated to itself that regardless of how sophisticated an adversary may be, the determination to live and exist. And as that tribulative comet glowed brighter in the heavens, so did the disappointment in the response to others. Adaptability could go past even the conflict's most dangerous threats had not only altered humanity's warfare, but it had additionally altered how people perceived themselves. Location in the cosmos was no longer Earth is an isolated and fragile planet at the pity of stronger species. The aliens' defeat signaled a new human history's first chapter in which the people of Earth were prepared to meet future difficulties with assurance and determination regarding the aliens' their attempt. Their attempt ended with retreat, to to subjugate the remaining armies on Earth brought their rank back to their homeworld. Their self-confidence was crushed. The conflict had shown the boundaries of their technology, as well as the conceit that the humans' tactics was directed by demonstrated that ultimately, flexibility and tenacity could triumph over even the aliens' most sophisticated technology. They had been beaten in spite of their strength. By the single item, they had never completely recognized the tenacity of an underappreciated species battling for its perseverance in the years following the invasions. Experience persisted. People on Earth are still thinking about the wars and impact it had. It has bleeding relevance for how we view the wars in military and civilian life, and how lessons from it are useful and clear reflections of the pressing problems they deal with. Humanity's perception of Earth had been put to the test and came out on top, demonstrating that power does not originate from technology by itself, but also from the capacity to consider, adjust, and endure. The camouflage covered in dirt was previously a representation of desperation, turned into an enduring symbol of proof that human ingenuity and defiance, regardless of the odds, humanity might endure, resilient and able to handle any challenge. The alien invaders were defeated, and it was more than just a strategic victory. It was the human spirit's triumph.